At a family dinner, I presented my husband's father with a $2,500 wheelchair, a gift following his surgery. His response was immediate and cutting. Return it. I'd rather crawl than know a whore. Everyone, including my husband, laughed. I quietly cleared the plates, took the wheelchair, and left without a word. The next morning, their security cameras captured an event they would never be able to explain. From the moment I married into this family, I sensed I didn't truly belong. It wasn't a feeling of being different in a cherished way, but rather of being tolerated for my usefulness. I was the one who fixed, organized, and paid for things. For a time, I mistakenly believed this was a form of love. My husband, Caleb, is the oldest of two boys. His parents are the type who believe women should keep quiet, serve dinner, and say thank you for being allowed at the table. I didn't come from that. I was raised to work hard, speak up, and not take scraps from anyone. I made compromises for Caleb for peace. His dad, Victor, never liked me. He thought I was too direct. He once told Caleb, "You didn't marry a wife, you hired a manager." I heard it through the door once. Caleb said nothing. Victor was the kind of man who made people nervous without raising his voice. He didn't need to yell. He'd just stare and people would fold. When he had his hip surgery, no one stepped up to help. Not his wife. Not his youngest son. Not even Caleb. Everyone made excuses. They said they were busy. They had work. The house was too far, so I did it. I arranged the post-op nurse visits. I managed his medication schedule. I stocked their fridge. I called insurance to make sure they covered his rehab. I did all of it quietly. I didn't ask for thanks. I just hoped they'd see me as someone they could count on. The wheelchair was the last piece. His doctor said he needed one with proper support, something that would reduce pressure on his lower spine and help his posture. The standard chair the hospital gave him wasn't enough. My existing insurance only covered the basics, so I began researching alternatives. I contacted manufacturers and visited showrooms, eventually finding a lightweight, electric-assisted model with memory foam cushions. It cost $2,482 after taxes, which I paid in full from my personal savings. Money I'd been secretly setting aside for IVF, unbeknownst to Caleb. I simply wanted to be prepared. The next time we had our monthly dinner at their house, I brought it with me. As I wheeled it through the front door, his mom looked puzzled while they were still setting the table. Caleb just asked, "Is that the one you picked?" "Yes," I replied, explaining it was a gift. I said this should help him move around the house easier. Victor stared at it for maybe 5 full seconds, then looked at me like I'd handed him a dead animal. "Return it," he said. "I'd rather crawl than know a whore." He said it slow, clear, meant for everyone to hear. I went still. I waited for someone to speak. I waited for Caleb to say something, anything. He smirked. Looked down at his plate. His mom giggled under her breath. His brother said, "Damn, Dad." But no one told him to stop. No one said it was wrong. I felt my face burn, but I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. I just stood up, went to the kitchen, and started clearing the plates one by one, like nothing happened. Caleb didn't look at me. He kept eating. When I was done, I rolled the wheelchair back outside, folded it up, and put it in my trunk. I closed the door. I didn't say goodbye. I drove away. I didn't go home. I booked a hotel 2 towns over and checked in for the night. I laid on the bed, fully dressed, and stared at the ceiling until morning. By the time the sun came up, I was done hoping they'd ever respect me. I remembered something Victor once said about me. "She acts like she's better than us because she has a degree." I don't. I have 2 jobs. I have debt, but I handled all of Caleb's bills. I did our taxes. I tracked every insurance claim. He didn't know the passwords to his own accounts. He always said, "You're good at that stuff." That morning, I checked every shared account. I moved my direct deposits to a new bank. I drained the joint savings. It was mine. I had put in 91% of it over the years. I had the statements to prove it. Then I checked the Ring app on my phone. I still had guest access to Victor's house cameras. During Caleb's recovery, I monitored deliveries and nurse visits through an access they neglected to revoke. I witnessed him on their porch, dressed as he was the previous night, appearing annoyed rather than concerned. His mother offered him coffee, and they spoke briefly. He dismissed my absence as sulking, and she described me as high-strung. Victor's shout from inside, "Good riddance," punctuated the scene. I observed it all without a flicker of reaction. Afterward, I retrieved items from the safe in our bedroom closet. Victor had granted me access 2 years prior when his bookkeeping became disorganized, and I had managed his vendor receipts and taxes for free for 2 years. He said I was organized. What he meant was, you'll do the dirty work. Inside the safe were all the old records. He never wanted anyone to see handwritten invoices, undeclared income, sketchy write-offs. I had scanned most of them back when I was helping. I still had them on a USB drive, so I made a fresh set of copies. I didn't send them yet. I just prepared. That afternoon, I filed for divorce. When I served Caleb the papers, he looked genuinely confused. "You're serious?" over a chair. I didn't answer. The lawyer I hired was sharp. She helped me secure a temporary freeze on the mortgage account, so he couldn't refinance without my consent. I had paid the down payment with inheritance money for my grandfather. I never added Caleb's name to the title. He never noticed. I moved out 2 days later. I didn't scream. I didn't post anything online. I didn't trash him publicly. I just disappeared from their lives. Then last week, I got a phone call. It was Caleb. His voice was shaky. Their house had been broken into. Nothing was stolen. No signs of forced entry, but the wheelchair I had taken, it was in their living room. Muddy. Scratched. Facing Victor's recliner. The house alarm didn't go off. The ring footage showed movement near the back patio. A shadow. Someone moving carefully, quietly, like they knew the layout, the timing, the blind spots. I didn't say much on the phone, just asked everyone. Okay, he said yes. What? I didn't say that I had been watching their footage, that I knew the alarm code, that I knew which windows didn't latch. I didn't break anything. I didn't even go inside. I just returned a gift, and that was only the start. After that call, I didn't hear from Caleb for a week. I figured he'd either come storming back or go silent. He did both. I watched him spiral from a distance. He changed the passwords on our streaming accounts, canceled mice, Spotify login, little things. Then he showed up at my job. He waited in the parking lot until my shift ended. He stood by my car, arms crossed, attempting to project anger. I continued past him. "So, you're just gonna keep playing games?" he demanded. I didn't respond. He followed, accusing me of humiliating his family. He claimed his dad was traumatized and paranoid. His mom had trouble sleeping, and his brother believed the house was hexed. I stopped and faced him. "You let your dad call me a whore in front of everyone," I stated, "and you laughed." He fell silent, just standing there. I got into my car and drove off. That night, Caleb's younger brother Troy called. Drunk and slurring, he confessed he always liked me better and suggested I should have married someone with a spine. Then he told me Caleb had moved back in with her parents. The house was tense. He said Victor kept a bat by the door. They covered the front camera with duct tape. They unplugged the ring system. His mom burned sage. They thought someone was coming for them. I didn't say anything. I just let him ramble. A week later, the IRS letter arrived. Not for me. For them. I didn't send the tax documents directly. I gave them to someone else, an anonymous tip line. I knew how to do it in a way that couldn't be traced. I had taken screenshots, recorded my own work, emails with Victor, saved copies of payments that didn't match, bank records, nothing fake, just the truth. I didn't expect the audit to hit that fast, but it did. Victor tried to blame his bookkeeper. Me said I must have messed things up, but I had signed nothing. I had access but not control. He never filed anything through me. I just organized his mess. Now he was getting letters, emails, calls, a man who spent decades cheating the system. Suddenly under a microscope, and he was panicking. He called Caleb, told him to get me to fix it. Caleb texted me, "Can we talk?" I didn't answer. He sent another. You're destroying lives over a joke. I sent one back. You destroyed a marriage over silence. Then I blocked him. 3 days later, someone tried to break into my new apartment. They didn't get in. The door was reinforced, but the attempt was messy. Scratch lock, muddy prints. Someone tried to force the latch with a screwdriver. I had cameras of my own, new ones, better ones. The man in the footage wore gloves and a hoodie. Couldn't see his face. I recognized his walk. I recognized the way he kicked at the welcome mat. Caleb always did that. A little nervous habit. A flick of the toe before stepping inside always annoyed me. I didn't call the police. I made another backup of the footage. I sent it to my lawyer just in case. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called Troy. He answered right away, sounded surprised. I asked if Caleb had been drinking lately, if he'd been angry. Troy confessed to acting strangely, admitting he'd disappear some nights and return sweaty and paranoid. He asked if I was okay, but I didn't answer. That night, I left another package at their house. No note, just a small box containing the wheelchair's warranty paperwork, an itemized cost list, and a grainy still photo from their ring footage. The morning after the chair reappeared, Victor called me. There was no yelling, no insults, just a simple, "What do you want?" I didn't respond, as it was no longer about my desires, but about their growing fear. After Victor's call, an unsettling silence descended. No texts, no emails, no unexpected visits, no surprises. The alerts from their house cameras also stopped coming to my work. I figured they finally realized they were outmatched, but I was wrong. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Not typed, handwritten, sloppy, angry. It wasn't from Victor, Caleb. It was from Caleb's mother. She told me I was tearing apart a family, that her husband was getting sicker from the stress that the IRS was now asking about a second business. Victor had kept hidden something she didn't even know about. She wrote that I was cold, unforgiving, vindictive. But then at the bottom, in messy letters, she begged. She asked me to stop. She said Victor had chest pains the night before. The doctors warned him to stay calm. She didn't say sorry, not once. Not for the insult, not for laughing, not for raising a son who stood by and watched. She just begged for quiet, and that told me everything I needed to know. They were unraveling, and Caleb, he was nowhere to be seen. Until one morning, I got an alert from my old iCloud account, one I hadn't touched in over a year. I'd forgotten it was still connected to the shared MacBook back at our house. He hadn't wiped it, and there it was, a PDF file titled Print Up Options March Draft. I opened it. It was a scanned document, not ours. His brothers, Troy and his girlfriend. Turns out Caleb had helped Troy draft up a prenup with a lawyer friend. Something to protect the family assets, except I found something buried deep in the draft's reference notes, a mention of a family inheritance trust that Victor had set up years ago. It was never listed in taxes, never discussed openly, but it existed and it was under Victor's name, but Caleb and Troy were beneficiaries. That's when it hit me. This was never about the wheelchair or the joke or even the silence. It was about protecting what they thought was theirs. That's why they panicked when the IRS started sniffing around. Because if the audit found that trust, if the wrong numbers showed up, they'd all be pulled in, and they knew I had copies, spreadsheets, years of files, even handwritten ledgers from Victor's garage. I had scanned them all, some with his signature, some with dates and cash amounts that never matched the books. I hadn't sent those yet. I was saving them. I wanted to see who would try to clean up the mess first. 3 days later, someone did. A lawyer contacted my attorney. She asked if we'd be open to private resolution. No court, no IRS. Just a clean agreement and a confidentiality clause. She didn't say where she was from, but she referenced the trust. Said it was accidentally exposed. They were offering money, not a lot, enough to try and make me walk away. I didn't reply. Instead, I made a copy of everything I had. I stored it on 2 hard drives. One I gave to my lawyer, the other I mailed to someone they never saw coming. Troy's fiancée. She and I had only met twice, but she seemed smart, sharp, the kind of woman who would read every line of a contract before signing anything. I mailed it with no note, just a thumb drive labeled, "Ask before you sign." 2 days after she got it, Troy texted me. "Why would you do that?" I didn't reply, but I knew she'd seen it, and I knew she'd ask questions, and I knew that trust, the one they'd all kept quiet, was about to become the one thing they couldn't hide anymore. Troy's text didn't rattle me. I knew it was coming, but it was what he didn't say that told me everything. He didn't ask if it was true. He didn't ask what I sent. He already knew, or she had already shown him. That was enough. A few days later, Caleb's mom called again. I didn't pick up. Then came the voicemails. One was angry. The next one was shaky, her voice trembling. In that second message, she said they were meeting with a second lawyer. The discussion shifted to restructuring the trust, with Troy's fiancé demanding full transparency under threat of withdrawal. Her next statement, however, was particularly unsettling. "This is not just going to affect the boys. This affects the grandkids." This stopped me cold. I hadn't shared this information with anyone, not even my parents. We had been trying to conceive. IVF was never a guaranteed outcome. I was discreetly gathering information, saving money, and undergoing blood tests. Caleb was completely unaware, yet somehow, she knew that very night. Later, I delved into my email backups and discovered an appointment reminder from a fertility clinic, dated months prior. It had been sent to our shared Gmail account, the one Caleb still had access to before I left. He must have seen it, maybe before the dinner, maybe after. That's when the timeline shifted for me. What if the joke at dinner wasn't just a moment of cruelty? What if it was a message? What if they knew I was planning something for myself? Something separate, something with or without Caleb, and they wanted to humiliate me first? What if calling me a whore wasn't just a sick joke? What if it was about control? I thought about that for days. I couldn't sleep. I started waking up at 3 a.m. heart racing, checking locks that were already locked. Then something else happened. One morning I got a calendar invite on my phone from Caleb. Just a Google event titled Discussion. 15 minutes. I almost declined it, but I didn't. I showed up neutral ground, a diner halfway between my place and the old neighborhood. I wore black, no makeup. He was already there when I walked in. Pale, thinner. He didn't look like someone who wanted to win. He looked like someone who had already lost and was hoping to keep a piece of the wreckage. We didn't hug. We didn't shake hands. He didn't even say sorry. He just said, "They're scared of you." I said, "They should be." Then he said something I didn't expect. He said, "They're going to blame me, not Dad." Me. I didn't answer. I let him talk. He said his mom wanted him to convince me to sign something that she wanted it done before the IRS audit expanded that Victor had started talking about cutting Caleb out to protect the trust. I made a mistake, Caleb confessed. When I looked at him, I realized he wasn't referring to the joke or the laughter. He meant me. He saw me as the mistake, someone he believed would be easily silenced, would crumble, and would remain. Now I was the unpredictable element. I was silent, yet not gone. I left the diner without another word. On my way home, I received a message from Troy's fiancé. "Thank you for telling me the truth before I married into this mess." I didn't feel the need to respond. The IRS audit had escalated. What began as a few years of missed filings had unraveled into 2 decades of undeclared income, illicit contracts, and shell payments. Victor's business wasn't just shady, it was illegal. He thought it would stop at a fine, maybe a payment plan, maybe a slap on the wrist if he blamed a disgruntled ex-bookkeeper, but they kept digging. The trust showed up. They tried to deny it, but it was real, active, and underreported. The audit connected it to properties, vehicles, and money moved in and out over the years with no tax trail. Troy's fiancé walked quietly, moved her things out overnight. Then she sent a copy of the printup to the audit attorney handling the case. She highlighted the section Caleb had drafted where he referenced family assets not publicly disclosed. It wasn't just about hiding money anymore, it was now about intent, planning fraud. I didn't send any of that. She did on her own, and that mattered. The case turned criminal. Victor was indicted first, then Caleb. Not for what I sent, but for what they tried to erase after they knew I had it. Backdated documents, destroyed receipts, access logs from their family accountant software that showed someone logging in to adjust old entries. Weeks after I left, they weren't careful. They never expected the world to look at them too closely. They were used to getting away with it. Victor took a deal, pleaded out to avoid trial. He'll never serve time. He's too old, too frail now. But they seized the trust, froze the accounts, liquidated assets, the house gone. Vehicles gone. The business shut down. He lives in a one-bedroom apartment. Now, walk up. No elevator, no chair. Caleb wasn't as lucky. His deal came with probation and a felony record credit, ruined career over. I heard he tried working at a warehouse last month. Couldn't pass the background check. He emailed me once, said, "I never thought you'd go this far." I didn't respond because I didn't go that far. They did. His mother had a breakdown during the second year of proceedings. Not medical, just emotional, the kind that turns people small. She stopped talking to her friends, moved in with her sister, 3 states away. I haven't heard anything since. Troy went quiet. No social media, no calls. I assume he's waiting for it all to blow over. Maybe he thinks he'll rebuild someday. But people remember their name is poison now. It follows them. As for me, I didn't get away clean. I lost time. Years of it, I lost money. Peace nights of sleep. I'll never get back. I lost a version of myself. I'll never fully revert to the person who sought to fix everything and yearned for love from those who viewed her merely as an outsider with a checkbook. That part of me perished when he laughed, but I gained something invaluable. Silence. No more cameras, no more alerts, no more watching my back. I relocated, secured a new job. Nothing extravagant, but peaceful. I reconnected with my family and engaged with people who genuinely care about my well-being. As for the wheelchair, I anonymously donated it to a rehab center 2 towns away. I simply left it at the front desk with a receipt and a note. Give this to someone who'd rather crawl than owe the wrong person.